Hello friends. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. Working the night shift as a 911 dispatcher in Willow Creek County wasn't supposed to stick with me like this. 8 years in, I thought I'd built up armor thick enough to handle anything. Drunk drivers, domestic fights, accidental shootings. Those calls used to shake me once. Not anymore. You learn to breathe through the noise, follow the protocol, and lock away the screams behind the sound of typing. But some calls don't fade. They stay. They rot quietly in the back of your mind until the silence of a normal night feels wrong. Too calm. Too much like the moment before the phone rings. The one that broke me came on October 21st, 2020. A cold, windy Tuesday. Half the county's power was flickering because of a storm rolling over the lake. My fifth cup of coffee sat half empty beside my keyboard, the dispatch center humming softly with fluorescent lights. It was 11:39 p.m. when line 3 lit up. Willow Creek emergency. This is dispatcher 914. What's your emergency? At first, I only heard breathing. Soft, uneven, like someone trying not to cry. Hello? I asked again. This is emergency services. Are you able to speak? Then a whisper, so quiet it almost didn't register. Please, help me. The voice was young, a girl, maybe 16 or 17. There was a tremble in her tone that made my stomach knot. What's your name, sweetheart? Lauren, she said. Lauren Pierce. Okay, Lauren. Can you tell me where you are? There was a pause, then a shaky exhale. He's here, she whispered. Ethan's here. He's trying to get in. The name hit me like a jolt. I pulled up the caller's ID, address 219 Willow Bend Drive, and immediately cross-referenced it. Her record came up fast. Restraining order filed 2 months ago against Ethan Cole, age 20. Domestic disturbance noted twice. Prior stalking complaint. My fingers started flying across the keyboard. Priority 1. Possible intruder. Previous violent history. Lauren, I want you to stay calm for me, okay? I've already sent units to your house. They're coming as fast as they can. Where are you in the house right now? Bedroom closet, she whispered. Upstairs. My parents went to Denver for the weekend. I'm alone. That word, alone, always hits different. Okay. Do you have your phone plugged in? Battery, okay? Yes. Good. Stay on the line with me, Lauren. You're doing great. Then I heard it. A dull, heavy thud. So distinct it cut through the line. Another one followed. The unmistakable sound of someone testing a door. Is that him? I asked quietly. Yes, she breathed. The back door. He's hitting it. I typed faster. Suspect attempting entry through rear door. Victim in upstairs bedroom closet. Officers en route. ETA 7 minutes. 7 minutes. When you're listening to someone's fear in real time, 7 minutes feels like 7 years. Is your bedroom door locked, Lauren? Yes, but it's old. It rattles when he pushes it. Okay, you're doing everything right. Stay quiet. Keep me updated, even if you have to whisper. Another sound came through, the low groan of metal giving way, followed by the shatter of glass. He was inside. Lauren, where exactly do you hear him? In the kitchen. He's calling my name. Then, faintly, through her phone I heard a male voice, drawn out, teasing. Lauren, you forgot about me, didn't you? The hairs on my neck stood up. I flagged the responding units again. Suspect inside. Possible violent history. Proceed with caution. Lauren, listen carefully, I said. Is there anything heavy near you? Something you can use to block the closet door? There's a box of Christmas stuff, she said, and a suitcase. Good. Stack it against the door. Keep as quiet as you can. Her breathing grew fast, shallow. I could hear footsteps now, slow, heavy, moving through her house. Each step seemed deliberate, calculated. "Lauren," the man's voice drifted through again, mocking now. "You think I don't know where you hide?" "You always hide upstairs," she whimpered softly. "He's coming up." My heart started pounding with hers. I opened her house's blueprint from the property database. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom upstairs, closet facing the hall. The sound of creaking stairs came through the line, each step louder than the last. "Lauren, you're okay," I whispered. "Help is coming." 4 minutes away now. I promise. The voice outside her room was muffled, low. "You changed your hair. I saw you at the grocery store last week. Thought you could ignore me?" The door handle rattled, lightly at first, then harder. Bang. Bang. I typed the update so fast my fingers cramped. Suspected victim's bedroom door, attempting forced entry. "Lauren," I said, "is there a window in your closet?" "No, but there's a crawl space. A little square in the ceiling. Can you reach it?" "I don't know." Then the banging stopped. Silence. "Lauren, can you still hear me?" "Yes," she whispered. He stopped moving. I strained to hear something, anything. Then came a sound I'll never forget. He was laughing. Softly, like someone who already knew he'd won. Then, "I found your pictures, Lauren. The ones from the lake. You looked so happy then." He sounded so close, his voice trembling with something twisted. Bang! The sound of the door breaking split the quiet. She screamed. "Lauren! Listen to me. Get to the crawl space if you can," I said, louder than I should have. I heard the phone drop, tumbling against the floor. Then the sound of a struggle. Shouting, sobbing, furniture breaking. "Don't touch me!" "Ethan, stop." "Should have answered me," I typed through shaking hands. "Suspect has made contact with victim. Immediate assistance required." The responding unit's voice came through the radio. "Unit 12, we're rerouted. There's an accident blocking County Road 6. We'll have to detour. ETA 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I felt sick. Through the phone, I heard more chaos, something breaking, a crash, another scream. Then silence. It was the longest minute of my life. "Lauren," I whispered, "can you hear me?" Nothing. Just the faint hum of static and the distant ticking of a clock somewhere in her house. I kept talking anyway. "Lauren, officers are almost there. You're not alone. Just hang on, sweetheart. Please hang on." The silence grew heavy. Then, faintly, there was movement. A soft scrape, footsteps again, but slower this time. A voice came through the line. Male, calm, too calm. "She's gone now," he said. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I froze, hands hovering above the keyboard. "Who is this?" I said, forcing my voice steady. The man chuckled. "You already know." Then the line went dead. The next minutes blurred. I heard sirens faintly through the dispatch feed. The first unit arrived at 11:58 p.m., 19 minutes after the call started. Their body cams would later capture the rest. Broken door, blood on the carpet, the phone on the floor still connected to me. I stayed on the line, whispering her name long after I knew she wouldn't answer. When Officer Kramer came over the radio, his voice was tight. "Dispatch, we need EMS and coroner to 219 Willow Bend. Victim is deceased. Possible homicide suspect fled on foot toward the woods." The headset felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Someone had to physically pry it off my head. They launched a manhunt that lasted 3 days. Helicopters, dogs, search teams, everything. Ethan Cole was found 40 miles north, holed up in a derelict ranger station in the woods. He gave up without a fight. When they asked him why he did it, all he said was, "She stopped loving me." He took a plea deal, life without parole. I saw him once at the sentencing. He looked bored. Lauren's parents were there too. They'd come back from their trip to flashing lights and reporters. When I was called to testify, I expected hate from them. Blame. But when I looked up from the stand, her mother was already watching me. She mouthed the words, "Thank you." After the trial, she found me in the courthouse restroom. She touched my arm and said softly, "You stayed with her." She wasn't alone. That means something I broke right there. I went back to dispatch after 6 months of mandatory leave. Everything felt different. Every call, every ring, carried her voice behind it. I'd see the timer ticking on the console and feel my chest tighten, wondering if, this time, I'd have enough minutes to make a difference. I lasted another 4 months before I quit for good. Now I work tech support for a small insurance firm in Nebraska. Sometimes I think about how absurd it is that my biggest emergencies now involve someone forgetting a password. But I still keep my old headset in a drawer. I don't know why. On quiet nights, I still hear her whisper, "Please help me." And I still wake up before I can. There are some calls that never disconnect. They just change frequency and live inside your head. The radio static that night had a strange metallic edge to it, sharper than usual, like it was cutting through the air instead of floating in it. It was December 9th, 2022, and I was 3 hours into my dispatch shift at the Crescent County Sheriff's Office in northern Montana. My name's Laura Keene, and I'd been working overnight dispatch for about 5 years by then. The job wasn't glamorous, mostly involved logging traffic stops, fielding the occasional call about lost cattle, and reminding people that loud neighbors didn't qualify as emergencies. Nights were long, quiet, and lonely, especially in winter when the wind howled across the plains like a living thing. We had just 3 deputies on duty that night, covering nearly 900 square miles of frozen wilderness, farmland, and scattered cabins. Deputy Ryan Adler was assigned to the northern route, long stretches of highway skirting the edge of Maple Hollow National Forest, which everyone in town called the woods that didn't like visitors. Ryan was one of the newer hires, but steady. Ex-military, clean record, good instincts. Every half hour, he'd radio in like clockwork. Unit 12, all clear. Mile marker 38. Unit 12, check an abandoned ranger post, all secure. Routine, predictable, comforting. But that night, the comfort didn't last. At 11:47 p.m., Ryan checked in from Forest Access Road 117, an old logging path that cut deep into the forest before looping back toward the interstate. There had been reports earlier in the week of a group of campers ignoring the seasonal closure signs. So he said he'd drive up and check. I logged his coordinates, took a sip of cold coffee, and went back to my crossword. The next check-in was due at 12:15 a.m. It never came. At 12:17, I keyed my mic. Unit 12, this is dispatch. Confirm status. Over. Nothing but that sharp, metallic static. I tried again and again. At 12:20, I called our field sergeant, Tom Granger, who was patrolling the western edge of the county. Protocol said to wait 15 minutes before escalating. But something about that silence, the weight of it, didn't feel procedural. It felt wrong. Just as I was about to send Granger toward 117, my radio cracked alive, loud enough to make me jump. Dispatch. Unit 12. I've got someone? Crackle. Standing in the road, middle of the damn road, just staring. His voice was off, ragged, breathless. I sat up straight. Copy that, Unit 12. Can you describe the subject? Are they in distress? A pause. Then, can't tell. 50 yards ahead, wearing something dark. No movement, just standing there. In the background, I could hear his cruiser idling, and beneath the hum of the engine, something else. A low, rhythmic droning, almost mechanical, bleeding through the static. Should I approach? Ryan asked. There was hesitation. Fear. The kind of tone you never hear from trained officers. -12. Maintain distance. Back up en route. But before I could finish, his mic picked up a soft ding. The car door chime. He was getting out. Sir? Mom, Sheriff's Department, are you okay? His voice drifted from the mic, growing fainter. The radio captured only fragments, crunching snow, muffled breathing, then a faint metallic tinkling, like tiny wind chimes caught in the cold. Then Ryan's voice, quiet and trembling. That's not. You're not. The radio howled with static. Then came a scream. Not terror, not pain, but confusion. A sound of someone seeing something their mind couldn't file under real. The face. The face is wrong. And then, nothing. Just silence. A heavy, choking silence that pressed against my chest like a weight. Sergeant Granger reached the scene at 12:51 a.m. His voice came through clipped, controlled. Dispatch, I've got visual on Unit 12's cruiser. Engines running. Door open. I could hear his boots crunching through snow, his flashlight clicking on. Driver not present. Sidearm on the ground. Full magazine. Radios hanging from the door. There's drag marks. I gripped the edge of my desk. Drag marks? Yeah. Something, or someone, got pulled away from the vehicle about 20 feet, then stops. Just ends right there. He went quiet for a few seconds. Dispatch, there's a boot here. Looks like his. Left one. The next sound in my headset wasn't his voice. It was his breathing. Uneven. Panicked. Laura, there's something else. The snow around here, it's melted. In a perfect circle. About 6 feet wide. When they pulled Ryan's cruiser back to the station, the body cam footage was already making its rounds among the investigators. The footage started clean. Ryan driving down Route 117, headlights cutting tunnels through the snow. Then, about 11:58 p.m., a figure appeared in the beam, motionless in the center of the road. Tall. Thin. Wearing what looked like a long coat or robe. No reflection from the eyes, no breath in the cold. Ryan got out, flashlight in one hand, body cam still recording. He called out twice. No response. He stepped closer. 10 feet. 8. 6. The figure lifted its head. The camera glitched, not like normal interference. The pixels twisted into impossible shapes. Spirals within spirals, fractal patterns that hurt to look at. When the footage stabilized, the figure was gone. Just black trees and snow. Ryan's voice came through once more, faint and cracking. It's behind me. Then the feed went dead. By dawn, the entire county was involved. Deputies, volunteer firefighters, even off-duty rangers. They found Ryan's right boot an eighth of a mile from the road, standing upright, perfectly balanced. His radio mic was discovered hanging from a tree branch 15 feet up, as if placed there carefully. Then came the weirdest find. His badge, polished and gleaming, wedged into a crevice of rock near the creek, with his name tag missing. There was no blood, no footprints beyond his own, no signs of struggle, only that same 6-foot melted circle in the snow. At 2:13 a.m., Granger called me from his patrol car. He was back near Route 117, checking on the site again, part of routine follow-up. Laura, you're not gonna like this. There's somebody standing in the same spot again. My throat tightened. Copy that. Can you identify? He paused. They're wearing a deputy's uniform. Ryan's. Yes. But we have that in evidence, don't we? We did. Every piece of it, sealed and tagged. Granger, do not approach. I repeat, wait for backup. No response. Then the car door opened. Sir, turn around slowly. Sheriff's Department. The radio hissed, faint static, then a single sentence that still wakes me up at night. It doesn't have a face. He screamed, a deep animal sound. Then static swallowed everything. When backup arrived 7 minutes later, Granger's cruiser sat empty. Headlights still on, engine running, doors locked from the inside. His dash cam showed nothing but corrupted footage. And on the windshield, written in condensation from the inside, was a single handprint. After Granger disappeared, the FBI moved in fast. They shut down Route 117 entirely, fenced it off, posted environmental hazard signs. Locals whispered that the government wasn't investigating. They were containing. I kept working dispatch for another few months, though every time the radio hissed, my pulse spiked. Then one night, around 3 a.m., I heard something through the static. Not random noise this time. Words. A voice. Ryan's voice. Laura, can you copy? Don't come here. It wears us now. I froze. The signal flickered. Then came that same chime sound, like bones hitting glass. After that night, I couldn't keep doing the job. I handed in my badge, boxed my headset, and moved to another county. But it didn't matter. Because sometimes, when I'm driving late and scan through local frequencies, I still catch it. That same metallic static. And beneath it, faint voices whispering through the hiss. Sometimes I hear Ryan's name, sometimes Granger's. And once, just once, I swear I heard my own. The official report lists both deputies as missing in action. Case closed. No foul play. But the locals still talk about Route 117. Truckers say that if you drive that way after midnight, your CB radio starts picking up chatter from officers who don't exist. Hikers claim they've seen figures standing by the tree line, motionless, uniformed, waiting. The county has plans to expand the reserve next year, build new trails deeper into Maple Hollow. They shouldn't, because whatever's out there in that stretch of forest, whatever wears the faces and voices of the missing, is still waiting for another patrol car to stop, another voice to answer the static, another name to add to the signal that never dies. The night shift at Redwood County Police Dispatch was always quietest between midnight and 3 a.m. That strange dead zone when even the drunk drivers have called it a night and the city finally exhales. I'd been on the job 5 years by then, long enough to stop being surprised by what people call 911 for. I'd heard it all. Ghosts in the attic, aliens in the backyard, someone convinced their neighbor's dog was possessed. But that night, that humid August night, was the first time I heard silence on the other end of the line, and felt something listening back. It was August 18th, 2021, 11:38 p.m. A call came in from 942 Maple Drive. 2 seconds of static, then a faint click, and nothing. That address popped up red in our system. Condemned property. A 2-story house with boarded windows that had burned halfway down last year after a meth lab explosion. It was supposed to be demolished 6 months ago, but the city had budget delays, as always. I logged the call as a hang-up and went back to my coffee. Probably some kids found an old phone line still live and decided to prank dispatch. Happens all the time. Except, 15 minutes later, it rang again. Same address, same silence. Then a low hiss, almost like someone trying not to breathe too loud. That's when my stomach started to tighten. Protocol says after 2 hang-ups from the same address, you send a patrol to check it out. So I radioed Unit 12, Officers Daniels and Holt, who were cruising the west sector. Both were veterans, the kind who didn't scare easy. "Probably squatters," Holt joked. "Or ghosts," I said, trying to sound casual. He laughed, but I heard him load his flashlight batteries anyway. As they drove, I pulled up the property history. The last owner, a Timothy Rhodes, had been arrested for chemical manufacturing. No one claimed the house since. The photos on file showed blackened walls, a collapsed staircase, and graffiti across the front door. "Keep out. They still hear you." Their body cam feed went live on my monitor. The place looked worse than I expected. Half the porch missing, roof caved on one side, vines crawling through shattered windows. A "condemned" sign hung crooked near the door, half torn away. Daniel swept the flashlight across the front room. Looked like something from a nightmare. Melted wallpaper, scorched furniture outlines, soot-covered floors. "Dispatch," he said. "Front door's open." "Looks like someone's been inside recently." "How can you tell?" I asked. "There are footprints in the ash," he said. "Fresh ones. 2 sets." Then I heard it through his mic, faint tapping. Not from his end, but somewhere inside the house. Holt whispered, "You hear that?" They both froze. The tapping came again, irregular, like someone rhythmically hitting a wall. Tap, 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 tap. Daniels followed the sound down a narrow hallway leading toward the back of the house. The floorboards creaked like dying wood. That's when the 3rd call came in. Same number, same address. But this time, someone spoke. A child's voice, barely audible through static. "Please, it won't stop. It's making us." Then a crash, and the line went dead. "Daniels," I said through the radio. "The caller might still be inside." "Sounds like a child." "Proceed with caution," he acknowledged. His breathing grew louder through the feed. The back door was hanging open, leading into what used to be the kitchen. Everything inside was black. Ceiling, counters, even the refrigerator melted to shape. But in the center of the floor sat something completely out of place. A clean metal case, shining under the flashlight. Daniels knelt down, opened it carefully. Inside were glass syringes, a stack of photographs, and a voice recorder. The photos were of teenagers, maybe 14 or 15, all standing in front of the same house. Some looked dazed, others terrified. Every photo had something written on the back in marker. Phase 1 complete. Identity reset successful. Awaiting ascension. Holt picked up the recorder and hit play. A distorted male voice filled the static. "Breathe in. Forget who you were. The noise is leaving you. The voice will build you again." Then whispering. Dozens of voices repeating. "We hear. We hear. We hear." I could hear the hum of the generator through their mics before they found it. Someone had rigged a power supply in the basement. They descended the steps, slow, cautious, guns raised. The air was thick with mildew and something metallic, like dried blood. The basement wasn't empty. Rows of construction lights were strung across the ceiling, connected to orange cords leading into another room. On the floor sat a circle of small recording devices, each with a microphone pointed toward the center, like an experiment setup. And in the middle of the circle was a chair, bolted to the concrete, with leather restraints on the arms and legs. Holt swore under his breath. "Dispatch," Daniel said. "We've got an illegal setup down here. Medical or psychological equipment. Looks like someone was conducting something." Before I could respond, a second voice came through, not from their radio, but from somewhere inside the feed itself, a man's voice. Calm. Controlled. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel spun toward the sound, but there was no one in the frame. The flashlight flickered. The camera glitched for half a second, and when the picture returned, something was standing behind the chair. A shape. Tall, thin, wearing a lab coat stained gray from smoke. The man stepped forward. He looked normal. Too normal. Clean face, wire glasses, calm eyes that didn't blink. "My name is Dr. Isaac Marin," he said evenly. "This site is restricted. You're interfering with an ongoing reconstruction therapy." Daniels aimed his gun. "Hands where I can see them." But Marin didn't move. He just smiled. "You won't understand. These are rebirth sessions. The voices you hear aren't dying. They're evolving." Behind him, through the open door, Holt's camera caught movement. 3 figures sitting cross-legged on the floor, humming in low unison. Teenagers, shaved heads, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Each had markings across their arms. Geometric symbols, drawn in thick black ink, almost glowing under the light. Daniels ordered Marin to the ground. He obeyed slowly, almost gracefully. "Where are the others?" Daniels asked. Marin looked up, smiling wider. "They've gone to Phase 3. And that's when the 4th 911 call came in. This time, a different voice, hoarse, trembling. "They're not human anymore. Don't let them finish the chant." The connection cut instantly. Holt went to secure the teens, but one suddenly convulsed, mouth open, that same inhuman humming pouring out, louder now, echoing off the concrete walls. The lights flickered again. Something started leaking from the ceiling. Dark water, or oil, dripping onto the floor in rhythmic beats. Then one of the recorders on the ground turned itself on. Dozens of voices played back simultaneously, overlapping the live humming, distorting it into pure static. "Dispatch," Daniels shouted. "Back up now! Basement!" And the feed cut to black. When the backup unit arrived 9 minutes later, they found both officers alive but disoriented. The basement had been emptied. No teens, no doctor, no recordings, nothing but scorch marks on the walls and those geometric patterns drawn in soot on the concrete. Both officers swore they saw people, heard voices, but the footage was corrupted beyond repair. Just flashes of shapes and static. The house was sealed and scheduled for demolition 2 days later. But then, the calls started again. Not from Maple Drive, from random payphones across town, all using the same number. Every time, the caller whispered the same thing before disconnecting. Greater than Phase 3 is almost done. Over the next 2 months, missing person reports spiked. Mostly teenagers, mostly runaways. One of them, a girl named Amber Sloan, turned up in a field 12 miles outside the city. Alive, but with no memory of where she'd been. Her arms were covered in those same geometric tattoos. When investigators asked who did it, she just kept saying, "He made us forget the noise." No trace of Dr. Marin or his patients was ever found. Now, years later, I still work the dispatch desk. And sometimes, late at night, when everything's quiet, a call will come in from an unlisted number. 2 seconds of silence. Then faint breathing. Then, that same humming. It's always exactly at 11:47 p.m., and it always ends with the same click, like someone hanging up from the other side of the wall. I'd been partnered with Detective Samuel Rhodes for just under a year when that night happened, the one that changed how I see everything about this job. It was the summer of 2018, late August, the kind of sticky southern heat that clings to your skin even after midnight. We were assigned to the Hollow Creek district, a quiet stretch of residential homes, churches, and empty lots just outside Savannah, Georgia. Samuel was 52 then, a veteran cop with 2 decades of patrol work behind him. Everyone on the force respected him, not because he was loud or tough, but because he stayed calm no matter how bad things got. That's what made what happened so impossible to accept later. We'd been running night patrol since 10 p.m., mostly routine stuff. A domestic noise complaint, a couple of teens loitering at a closed gas station. Nothing serious. By 2 a.m., the radio was silent, and the only sound inside the cruiser was the low hum of the engine and Samuel's coffee stirring in its cup. That's when he decided, as always, to take the back route past Hollow Creek Cemetery. It wasn't on our official patrol route, but Samuel said it gave him peace to check it once in a while. He claimed, places like that draw the wrong kind of people after midnight. To anyone else, the cemetery looked like an ordinary patch of history. 10 acres of old oaks, tilted headstones, and cracked marble angels dating back to the 1800s. But every time we passed it, I felt something different. The kind of stillness that wasn't quiet, but watchful. The place bordered a new housing development, and half the streetlights on that stretch flickered on and off. When we turned down Maple Bend Road, I remember the way the fog hung low over the asphalt, almost glowing under the high beams. Samuel slowed the car, eyes narrowing as the iron gates of the cemetery came into view. And that's when we saw her. A small figure, standing just inside the gate. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, wearing a pale, almost luminescent dress that looked like a nightgown. Her hair was long, dark, and tangled, hanging loose around her shoulders. She stood completely still, staring straight ahead between 2 crumbling headstones. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank, maybe a kid who'd snuck out or someone messing with us. But when the headlights swept across her face, she didn't even blink. Samuel muttered, "What the hell?" and eased the car to a stop. I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7-12. Checking possible juvenile at Hollow Creek Cemetery entrance. Female, appears about 8 years old. Requesting check for missing persons." There was a crackle on the line, but I barely heard it because Samuel was already out of the car. He raised his flashlight and kept his tone calm, the way you talk to someone who's scared or confused. "Hey, sweetheart. You okay? You hurt?" The girl didn't react, not even a twitch. Her bare feet were visible under the hem of her gown, pale against the dark grass. That's when I realized something that chilled me. Despite standing on damp soil, her feet were completely clean. No mud, no grass stains, nothing. I stepped out beside him, the night air thick and unmoving. I could hear cicadas buzzing somewhere in the distance. But closer, everything was silent. Samuel tried again. "Honey, where are your parents?" No answer. She was staring past us, her eyes fixed on something deep within the cemetery. When the wind shifted, I caught the faint smell of wet earth and something else, like decaying flowers. We decided to approach from both sides. Samuel through the gate, me along the outer fence line. My flashlight beam caught on weathered tombstones and marble crosses. I moved slow, careful not to spook her. From my angle, I saw her face more clearly. Round cheeks, vacant expression, and skin that looked too pale, like porcelain. Samuel kept speaking gently. "It's okay. You're safe now. We can help." The girl didn't even glance at him. Her chest barely moved. I couldn't tell if she was breathing. Then, without warning, she turned, not gradually, but sharply, like someone pivoting on a hinge. And she started walking. Not running, not wandering, just walking. Silently. Her bare feet made no sound on the grass. The hem of her dress fluttered slightly as she moved between the graves, deeper into the cemetery. Samuel called after her. "Wait! Don't move! It's not safe in there!" She didn't stop. We followed her, flashlights sweeping across cracked stones and overgrown weeds. The deeper we went, the darker it became. The air was heavier there, colder too, like we'd stepped into a place the night refused to leave. She led us through a maze of ancient headstones and family plots until we reached a section bordered by rusted fencing, the original burial ground from the 1800s. She stopped beside a large stone angel with broken wings. Samuel and I froze about 15 feet away. "Ma'am," he said softly, "we're just trying to help you." She didn't move. I remember the light trembling in my hands. My flashlight beam landed on her back, and I noticed something wrong. The fabric of her gown wasn't just dirty. It was torn, ripped in strange circular shapes, like small handprints had clutched at it. Samuel took a cautious step closer. "I'm gonna call for help, okay?" That's when she turned her head slightly toward us. Her face looked calm, almost serene, but her eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the whole eye, a glossy void reflecting our flashlight beams. Before either of us could react, she was gone. One blink, and she wasn't there. No movement, no sound. Just the empty patch of grass beside the angel statue. Samuel shouted, running forward. I followed, scanning every inch of ground. The grass was undisturbed, except for our footprints. No small prints. No signs she'd been there at all. We called it in. Backup arrived. Floodlights swept the area. Dogs were brought in. Drones scanned the grounds. Nothing. The dogs didn't even pick up a scent. They acted restless, refusing to go near that statue. By dawn, the cemetery looked peaceful again. Too peaceful. When our shift ended, both of us were called in to give statements. I could tell by the captain's face he didn't believe us. But later that afternoon, he called us back into the briefing room. There was security footage from the street camera facing Hollow Creek Road. It showed our patrol car pulling up at 2:43 a.m., headlights cutting through the fog. Then, both of us stepping out, flashlights on. We were talking, looking around, and then walking into the cemetery together. But there was no girl. On the footage, we were pointing at empty air, speaking to no one, following nothing. I'll never forget the silence in that room when the video ended. Samuel looked pale, like someone had drained the life out of him. The captain rubbed his temples and said quietly, "You two get some rest. We'll figure this out," but we never did. 3 days later, another officer, Jenna Moore, found a small encampment about half a mile from the cemetery, hidden in a thicket behind a drainage ditch. Inside were old tarps, sleeping bags, and children's clothes, all for a girl about 7 or 8. Dresses, socks, a white cotton nightgown, just like the one we'd seen. There was also a music box cracked on one side. When Jenna opened it, it played a distorted lullaby. Slow, off-key, and faintly haunting. No one had reported a missing child matching that description in years, and whoever had lived there had left suddenly. The ashes in the small campfire were still warm. Neighbors claimed they'd occasionally seen an old woman in the area, long gray hair, always pushing a cart or carrying grocery bags. But no one knew her name. When they showed me photos from the camp, one picture made my blood run cold. Someone had carved into the inside wall of the tarp, small, shaky handwriting that read, "Greater than she only comes when it's quiet." Less than Samuel retired the next month, he told me he couldn't drive past Hollow Creek anymore. As for me, I still take that route sometimes. Not because I want to, but because something in me needs to know. Last winter, around 3 a.m., I slowed by the gates again. The fog was thick, rolling low across the ground. And for a split second, I thought I saw a small figure between the stones. Same place. Same stillness. When I blinked, she was gone. I kept driving, but the radio crackled suddenly, just for a moment. A faint static, and then something like a child's voice, humming a lullaby through the interference. I turned it off and didn't look back. Even now, I can't explain what we saw that night. But I know one thing for sure. Not everything buried in Hollow Creek Cemetery stays buried. The gas station off Highway 41 was the kind of place you only noticed when you were running low on gas or caffeine. It sat alone between two long stretches of farmland, a flickering neon sign, a cracked parking lot, and a small convenience store that hadn't changed since the late 90s. I'd stopped there a few times over the years. Their coffee was terrible, but it was the only light for miles on that road. So when the dispatch call came in around 6:12 a.m., I knew exactly where it was. Caller reports open doors. Lights on. No one inside, the radio said. No sign of the clerk. Routine welfare check, I thought. Probably someone sleeping in the back. Still, it was early, foggy, and I'd been on shift since midnight, that time of morning where your thoughts feel slower than your hands. When I pulled in, there was a single car parked near the pumps. The windows were fogged, engine off, keys still in the ignition. The air smelled faintly of diesel and rain. The glass door to the store was open just a crack, tapping gently against its frame with each gust of wind. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed, casting that washed-out glow that makes everything feel more artificial than it should. "County Sheriff's Office," I called out, stepping in. No answer. The place looked freshly stocked, candy racks full, coffee still steaming. Behind the counter, a blue jacket was draped neatly over a stool. Beside it sat a half-empty energy drink, condensation still on the can. I checked the bathrooms, the back office, the storage area. Nothing. No struggle. No overturned shelves. Just absence. The register drawer was open, but cash still inside. A few quarters spilled near the mat. Whoever was working that night hadn't been robbed. They just stopped existing in the middle of their shift. I went to the back room, where a small monitor showed the security feeds. 3 cameras, one for the front counter, one for the aisles, one facing the pumps. At 2:38 a.m., the clerk, name tag said Ethan Marks, was seen leaning over the counter, talking to someone outside the front door. You couldn't see who it was. The camera angle just missed the glass. He gestures, nods once, then walks off frame toward the entrance. Then the footage cuts out. Not static, not glitching, just cleanly ends. When it resumes, 17 minutes later, the store's empty. Lights still on, the mop bucket tipped over near the rear door. A faint, wet trail glistened across the tiles, stopping halfway down aisle 3. I took a deep breath. I'd seen plenty of bad things in my career. Car wrecks, domestic fights, suicides. But this felt like something else. Something deliberate. I called it in, requested backup, and sealed the scene. When the owner arrived later that morning, she looked pale as chalk. "We had a break-in last week," she said quietly. "They didn't take cash, though. Just the security hard drive. We replaced it 2 days ago." That was the same hard drive I'd just been reviewing. Whoever took the last one knew exactly what they wanted. Over the next few days, we combed through everything. Ethan's apartment, his phone records, his coworkers, his family. Nothing suspicious. No debts, no arguments, no signs he was planning to leave. The man had clocked in at 10 p.m., like always, logged every sale, checked every pump, then just vanished. 3 nights later, a second call came in. Different town, different county, but the same situation. A quick mart on the outskirts of Mill Creek, about 30 miles north. A customer at dawn found the store empty, coffee still hot, doors unlocked. The night clerk's name was Sarah Collins, 29. She'd texted her sister around 1:55 a.m., almost done mopping, heading home soon. By 2:41, she was gone. When we reviewed the store's security feed, my stomach turned cold. The footage cut out for 16 minutes, same time frame as Ethan's. When it came back, the mop was lying across the floor, handle cracked in two. 2 disappearances, same time frame, same setup, same missing footage. We checked both stations' maintenance records. Both had recently switched to a new surveillance contractor called Vision Track Services. Except when we looked deeper, that company didn't exist. The listed address led to a demolished strip mall outside Cedar Junction. The listed tech contact, Alan Breyer, had no employment record anywhere. It was like chasing smoke. By the time the third case hit, even the department couldn't deny something was wrong. It was a 24-hour rest stop market off Interstate 9, the kind of fluorescent hellscape where truckers stop for cheap coffee and bad sandwiches. The clerk this time was Mark Jensen, 33. He was seen on footage refilling the coffee pots at 2:35 a.m. At 2:40, he looks up sharply, like he heard something outside. He walks toward the automatic doors. They slide open, but no one's there. He steps outside the frame. Then, black. Camera feed gone for 17 minutes exactly. When it returns, coffee's still dripping, doors still half open. But Mark's gone, just like the others. And once again, the mop is lying across the floor, as if dropped mid-step. At this point, I stopped believing it was coincidence. Someone, or something, was coordinating these vanishings with precision. I started mapping them. 3 locations, forming a rough triangle across 2 counties, all within a 30-mile radius. All at near identical times between 2:35 and 2:45 a.m. And all under a security system installed by the same phantom company. One night, after filing reports that went nowhere, I drove out to the first station again, Ethan's place off Highway 41. It had been shut down by then, windows boarded, pumps chained. But the sign still hung overhead, Horizon Fuel Stop, faded, cracked, and swaying in the wind. I parked the cruiser and just sat there for a while, watching the reflection of my headlights on the glass. The silence out there had a weight to it, like sound itself didn't want to exist. I stepped out, flashlight in hand, and walked toward the door. The boards were loose enough to pry open. Inside, the air smelled like mildew and something faintly metallic. The shelves were still stocked. Chips, gum, energy drinks, like everyone had just left in the middle of a workday. And on the counter, beneath a thin layer of dust, sat the same blue jacket I'd seen before. I don't know why, but I checked the back office again. The security monitor was still there, unplugged, screen cracked. When I touched the side of it, the monitor flickered once, just static. But through the static, for maybe half a second, I thought I saw a shape, something standing near the back exit, tall, still, watching. I froze. My flashlight beam trembled across the tiles. There was nothing there. The mop bucket was overturned again, exactly where it had been that first night. But now, on the tiles, the water stains had spread wider. Dark patches, shaped almost like footprints, leading toward the storage room. When I looked closer, I saw a faint indentation in the dust on the door handle, as if someone had touched it recently. I didn't open it. I just backed away slowly and left. A week later, I got a call from a retired technician. Said he used to work maintenance for a small surveillance startup out of Madison County years ago. They'd been bought out by a company called Vision Track right before going bankrupt. He said he recognized their logo when he saw it on the news. Apparently, their founder had been researching remote surveillance override systems. Tech that could take control of live cameras across locations simultaneously. But before the project was completed, their servers were wiped. All employees laid off. When I asked where the main lab used to be, he hesitated. Greater than off Highway 41, he said quietly. Old research annex behind the power station. That was less than 5 miles from the first gas station. I went there that night. The building was gone, just a cracked foundation and a concrete stairwell leading into the ground, half buried and flooded. But I swear, when I stood at the edge of that hole, my radio crackled. A voice came through, weak, distorted, greater than, still here? Then static. The transmission time, 2:40 a.m. They reassigned me 2 months later. Said I was too close to the case, too many sleepless nights. Maybe they were right. But sometimes, when I'm on patrol after midnight, I still pass one of those old stations. Boarded up, signs unlit, pumps wrapped in yellow tape. And through the dust-coated windows, I could swear I see movement inside. A faint flicker near the back exit, like someone mopping the floor. I keep driving, because I've learned something in all this. Some places stop being places after a while. They become echoes of the moment something went wrong. And if you ever find yourself on Highway 41, between 2:30 and 3 a.m., and you see a lit gas station where none should be, keep driving. Don't stop, because some lights aren't there to guide you home. They're there to see who still comes inside. My name's Ryan Keller, and I've been a park ranger at Hollow Creek Forest Reserve in northern Wisconsin for almost 6 years now. It's about 9,000 acres of untouched pine and birch, with hiking trails that weave through valleys most tourists never see. Quiet, isolated, the kind of place people visit to escape the noise of the world. I used to love it here. Used to. The night that changed everything happened last March, right after a late winter storm. I was covering a solo night patrol, something I'd done hundreds of times before. My job was simple: check the campgrounds, lock the gates, and make sure no one was out there breaking park rules. At 34, I'd gotten used to the rhythm of it all. The long silences, the owl calls, the crunch of frozen ground under my boots. After my divorce 2 years earlier, the solitude felt more like a blessing than a curse. That night, though, around 11:25 p.m., my radio crackled, a sharp burst of static that made me jump. "Unit 3, this is dispatch," said Carol, our night operator. "Got a call from a pair of campers near South Trail Ridge." They're reporting. Crying sounds. Children, possibly, I frowned. Children? Out here. "That's what they said," she replied. "They claim it's been going on for about an hour. Said it's moving through the woods that didn't sit right. It was 28 degrees outside, too cold for anyone to be wandering in the forest, let alone kids. I radioed back, said I'd check it out, and turned my Jeep toward the southern fire road. The forest was still recovering from the storm, branches heavy with snow, the air thick with that damp, metallic smell you only get in deep winter. As I neared the South Ridge campsite, I killed the headlights and coasted in. The fire was still burning. 2 figures sat beside it, both tense, heads snapping toward the sound of my tires. It was Eric Dalton, a regular hiker I knew, and his teenage daughter Emily. They'd camped here dozens of times before, experienced and responsible. But tonight, they looked rattled. Eric stood as I approached, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. "Ranger Keller," he said quickly, relief in his voice. "Thank God you're here." "You hear that?" At first I didn't. Just the pop of the campfire and the whisper of trees. Then it came. Faint, high-pitched, and drifting through the forest. A child's cry. It wasn't steady, more like bursts of sobbing, distant at first, then closer. It came from the direction of the old North Hollow Trail, which had been closed off for years due to flooding. The sound made the hairs rise on the back of my neck. It was too realistic, too emotional. Eric said they'd tried calling out, but the moment they did, the crying stopped. When they stayed silent, it started again, from a different direction. They'd heard it circle them for nearly an hour before calling for help. I told them to stay by the fire while I checked it out. "Keep your light on and don't leave the camp," I warned. Then I headed into the trees, alone. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. The usual forest noises, wind, distant owls, creaking branches, were gone. Only my boots against the frost-bitten ground. After about 10 minutes, I heard it again, a single, sharp cry. It came from ahead, maybe 50 yards. I moved slowly, flashlight cutting through the dark. And then I saw something strange. Scratches on the trees. They weren't animal marks. They looked deliberate. On one trunk, someone had carved a circle with smaller stick figures inside it. Children. A few trees later, I found more. Crooked words etched into bark. Greater than "play with us." Follow the song. And numbers. 4, 8, 19, repeated on multiple trees. Each carving looked fresh. Sap still glistened around the cuts. My chest tightened. Someone had been out here recently. A few minutes later, my beam caught something low to the ground. A shelter made from tarps and fallen branches. You wouldn't have seen it in daylight, let alone at night. It blended perfectly into the brush. The entrance was only big enough for someone to crawl through. Around it, dozens of small objects were half buried in the snow. Children's toys, weathered and broken. A cracked doll's head. A toy truck missing its wheels. Tiny shoes lined up neatly in a row. The smell hit me next. A sour, decaying stench that made me gag. I radioed in immediately. "Dispatch, this is Keller. I found a structure, possibly an illegal camp. You need to send backup." Now Carol's voice came back, thin through the static. "Greater than copy that. Units are 40 minutes out. You're alone for now." I crouched near the entrance, shining my light inside. There were notebooks scattered across the dirt floor, their pages warped by moisture. The writing was erratic. Sentences about bringing the lost ones home and keeping the forest alive with their songs. It made no sense. I backed away, heart pounding, when I suddenly heard it again. The crying. But this time, it was right behind me. I spun around, flashlight shaking. Nothing. Just the trees, black and silent. Then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, I heard another sound. A faint mechanical whine, like an old cassette player running on weak batteries. That's when it clicked. The crying wasn't real. It was recorded. Backup arrived just after midnight. 2 deputies and Detective Marla Rhodes, who handled missing persons in our county. We swept the area with high-powered lights and found 5 more of those small hidden speakers buried in the brush. Each one was playing the same loop. Audio of children crying, overlapping with faint laughter. Inside the shelter, Rhodes found a folder sealed in plastic. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, of children and adults taken from afar. Campgrounds, picnic areas, playgrounds, all local. Each photo had a name written on the back and a date. Some names matched unsolved missing person cases from neighboring states. We also found maps with circles drawn around specific forest preserves, all within a 200-mile radius. The person who built this place had been moving for years. His name, according to a half-burned driver's license found in the shelter, was Leonard Cray, 46. A drifter, ex-factory worker, last seen in Minnesota in 2018. reported missing by his sister. When Rhodes read the notebooks, her expression hardened. The entries described collecting the kind ones, singing with the quiet voices, and keeping the world asleep. We sent everything to the lab. Over the next few weeks, evidence linked Cray to at least 4 disappearances: 2 hikers, 1 hunter, and 1 teenage girl who'd vanished from a nearby rest area. He had been using the recorded cries to lure people off marked trails. Once they were alone, he'd ambush them. But Cray himself was gone. Search teams spent 3 weeks combing the reserve. Dogs picked up traces, old campfires, more makeshift shelters, scraps of clothing, but no sign of him. It was like he'd melted into the forest. For months, I couldn't sleep right. Every shift, every creak of the trees felt heavier, wrong somehow. The forest I used to trust, the one that felt like home, had changed. Or maybe I had. We found 3 more hidden speakers over the next month, placed along unmarked deer paths, all of them rigged to battery packs and timers. Cray had planned every inch of it. Detective Rhodes believed he'd been watching us, even during the searches. She said people like him didn't just vanish. They observed, learned, and adapted. The worst part was knowing how close I'd been that night, that he might have been watching me from 10 feet away while I was examining his shelter. Eventually, the FBI got involved. 2 months later, a park ranger in Minnesota's Iron Range Forest reported a similar setup. Hidden shelter, crying recordings, and the same carved symbols on trees. They staked it out for days. Then, at dawn on a Friday, they caught him. He didn't run, didn't fight. He just raised his hands and said, "The forest doesn't sing without me." Cray confessed to 8 abductions across 4 states. Some victims had escaped, others never found. During interrogation, he claimed he was teaching people to return to the woods, calling it his choir of the lost. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, but his recordings, hundreds of hours of audio, were never fully decoded. Some files contained layered sounds, whispers beneath the crying, words that analysts couldn't quite make out. After the case closed, I stayed at Hollow Creek for another 6 months. Then I requested a transfer closer to town. I told people it was for the shorter commute, but truthfully, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. Every time I heard a distant voice, every time wind passed through the pines, just right, I froze. Because sometimes, late at night, when I drive past the old South Trail turnoff, I swear I can still hear it. The faint echo of a child crying, drifting just beyond the light of my headlights. And I remind myself, the forest isn't evil, but people can make it that way. I used to rent a little 1-story house on the outskirts of Knoxville, Tennessee, with my boyfriend, Evan. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a squeaky back door that never shut all the way. But it had charm, the kind of place you'd expect your grandma to live in. Floral curtains, scuffed oak floors, old brass doorknobs that rattled when you turned them. It had this narrow hallway that connected the bedrooms, and right above that hallway was a small attic hatch. One of those square wooden panels you could push open with a broom handle. From the first day we moved in, I hated that hatch. It was painted the same yellowed cream color as the ceiling. But no matter how much light you turned on, it always looked darker around the edges, like it was hiding something. We'd been living there about 4 months when things started to get weird. At first, it was little things. A spoon in the sink when neither of us had eaten. The bathroom door cracked open when I knew I'd closed it tight. Once, I came home to find my shoes lined up neatly by the door. I don't line up my shoes. Evan thought I was being forgetful, maybe stressed from work. I work at a veterinary clinic, long shifts, early mornings. He used to tease that I was sleep decluttering. But I knew something wasn't right. The first time I heard it was around 2:15 a.m. A soft shuffle above the ceiling, like fabric brushing wood. It wasn't loud, but it was steady. I froze in bed, listening. Evan was out cold beside me, breathing deep. The sound stopped after maybe 20 seconds. The next night, it came again. Same time. Same faint, dragging sound. I convinced myself it was an animal. The landlord, Mr. Douglas, was this retired electrician in his 70s who lived 2 streets over. He was the kind of man who always smelled faintly of motor oil and used the phrase "back in my day" a lot. When I called to tell him we might have raccoons in the attic, he just chuckled. "Ah, those old rafters pop sometimes, honey. It's just the wood settling." I wanted to believe him. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the noises weren't random. They were deliberate, patterned, like footsteps. Things began to go missing. Not big things, little, forgettable items. My hairbrush, a single earring, a pack of gum from my purse. Then they'd reappear days later in places that made no sense. Under the couch, inside the microwave, once even in the freezer. Evan swore he wasn't doing it. I believed him. He's not the prank type. One night, I decided to test it. I set my phone camera on video mode, pointed it toward the hallway, and left it running overnight. When I checked the footage the next morning, all I saw was darkness, until around 3:08 a.m., when a faint click echoed through the house. The camera picked up a small movement in the frame, the attic hatch quivering ever so slightly. I stared at that frame for a long time. There was no breeze, no draft. That hatch had moved. I told Evan we needed to check the attic. He hated the idea, but I wasn't asking. I just wanted to know what was up there. We borrowed a ladder from our neighbor and climbed up that afternoon. The smell hit me first. Dust, rot, and something else. Something metallic. Evan shone his flashlight around. Cobwebs clung to the beams. Old insulation scattered across the boards like dirty snow. Then the beam of light landed on a pile of blankets in the corner. Not the kind you find in storage. These were bunched up, dirty, with food wrappers tucked underneath. There was a paper plate, a plastic water bottle half full, and a single shoe. Someone had been living up there. My stomach twisted. I remember whispering, "Evan, get down. Call Mr. Douglas." We climbed down, locked the hatch, and waited outside until Mr. Douglas arrived. He didn't seem shocked, just tense. He looked pale, kept wringing his hands. He muttered, "Not again," under his breath, which sent chills crawling up my spine. "What do you mean, not again?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he fetched his flip phone and called the police. 2 officers showed up within 30 minutes. Officer Matthews went up first, flashlight and gloves ready. He was up there for almost 10 minutes before he called for backup. I'll never forget his face when he came down. His skin was gray, his eyes wide. He told us there was more, a lot more. Behind the insulation, they found a sleeping bag, a stack of empty food cans, and, worst of all, a small mounted camera aimed through a vent leading directly into our bedroom. The red light on the camera was blinking when they pulled it out. My legs nearly gave out. I remember Evan cursing, pacing, asking how the hell this was possible. The officer didn't answer right away. He just said quietly, "Whoever set this up knew what they were doing." They bagged the camera and a few small notebooks they found near the sleeping area. The writing inside was barely legible. Lists of dates, random notes like, "She's alone today," and "Friday, new clothes." My hands shook so hard I could barely hold the cup of water the other officer gave me. We spent that night at a hotel. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that vent, the tiny circle above our bed. the one I'd stared at countless times, without realizing someone else might have been staring back. The police told us they'd dusted for prints, but didn't get a clear match. The setup looked deliberate, organized, not a homeless squatter. They said the wiring, the camera, even the food supply was too methodical. 2 days later, we went back to grab the rest of our stuff. Mr. Douglas had already sealed the hatch and boarded it over. He apologized, said he'd never seen anything like it. But when he looked at me, I could tell he was hiding something. I didn't push him. I just wanted to leave. About 3 weeks later, I got a call from Detective Reeves, the officer assigned to the case. He told me something that made my blood run cold. The camera's SD card contained nearly 6 weeks of footage. The earliest videos showed the attic empty. Then, on the third night, a shape appeared. A man crawling into view, wearing a dark hoodie and gloves. He adjusted the camera, then stared directly into the lens for several seconds before whispering, "She doesn't look up anymore." Detective Reeves said they found similar reports in nearby neighborhoods, houses with strange noises, missing food, and disturbed attic insulation. They still didn't know who he was. Evan tried to move on, but I couldn't. I stopped sleeping through the night. I'd wake up at 2 or 3 a.m., convinced I heard footsteps above me. Even after we moved into a new apartment, no attic, no crawl space, I'd catch myself checking vents, closets, even under the bed. One night, I came home late from work and found Evan standing on a chair in the hallway, flashlight pointed at the ceiling. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said softly, "Just listening." We broke up 2 months later. He said I'd changed. Maybe I had. A year passed before I heard about Mr. Douglas again. I was having coffee downtown when I ran into our old neighbor, Martha, who told me something that made my stomach drop. Apparently, years before we moved in, another tenant had complained about noises in that same attic. A single mother and her teenage daughter. One night, the girl had called 911, claiming she heard someone whispering her name from the ceiling. When the police arrived, the attic was empty, but the insulation was disturbed, and they found cigarette butts and food wrappers just like ours. Mr. Douglas never mentioned it. He'd quietly renovated, repainted, and rented it again. To us. Last month, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was only 6 seconds long. No words, just breathing. Slow, shallow, almost familiar. When I played it back again, I realized what I was hearing. The faint creak of wood beneath the sound of breathing, like someone shifting their weight on old rafters. I blocked the number immediately. But that night, as I was brushing my teeth, the vent above my bathroom mirror rattled once, just once, and then it stopped.